I went through early stages of trying to make it as a creative, and then I got arrested. Well, it helped that we got some PPP money. So that's what I used to invest in hiring the new people, because I wanted to reinvest back into the business. So that was the mental thing that I was able to get over. Even though we had a loss, but that was what helped us get over the hump and learn a lot. These were the mistakes that had to be made too. There was some very tumultuous moments, but that was the moment that I learned I could trust my team too, because they knew what was happening. It wasn't like I was just doing this behind their backs. This was all intentional.
You know, I always have this vision in my mind and this like picture when I think about what I could do, right? I'm at a lever right now. I have a lever right here, almost like a throttle to an airplane. I'm holding it here midway on the throttle because it's still difficult to do the social media, to do the firm stuff, to wear 8,000 hats on my head. But then maybe you see something on social media. Maybe you think to yourself, is there more? And then you take that throttle and you push it all the way to the afterburners. You're flying, but something's got to give. And I always think about that. Am I going to be happy with the result? And if that was the case, then sure, push the lever, 6 months, reconfigure, figure it out. Are you happy? But it's not. And we're live. Scott, what's going on, man? Great to have you on the show. What's happening, man?
Great to be here, man.
We've this has been a long time coming. I've been trying to meet up with you in person. I was texting you before this, and I feel like maybe my 2025 resolution should have been to meet up with you in person.
Maybe we can make that happen. We got a long year ahead of us. Still got over half of the year left.
You're right. I should stay ambitious. Yeah. Man, I want to start with actually this random thought that just came to my head, which is top 5 favorite rappers.
Oh, coming out the gate with top 5 favorite rappers. I could do this. I could do this.
Yeah, man.
The obvious one, Eminem. Have to say that first. Very obvious.
Yeah.
I take that. It's hard. Like I would say, if you're asking me right now, I would give you a top 3: Eminem, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar.
Ooh, fire.
That's my top 3 right now. I don't know if I want to go top 5 because nobody wants to hear me say Kanye, but I gotta put Kanye up there. He's not really a rapper, but he's just the creator that I would put up there just because of his impact that he's had. It may be negative impact right now, so we're not going to talk more about him.
Yeah.
Jay-Z. I don't know. That's where my head's at right now. There's Tupac, there's Biggie, there's all of the other rappers I could say, and I can keep going. I've been studying this for a long time now, but that's current day. That's where I'm at.
That's a solid list. I'd agree with you on those top 3 especially. Those are some really good dudes. But yeah, man, and I know your love for rap is equally as strong as mine. So I respect that, man.
As money? Rap? Or what was the as equally as strong as you? Oh, as you.
Yeah, as strong as mine. Yeah, as strong as mine. Not money, I don't know. I don't really care that much about money, I guess. It's just
I thought you were going to take it in an accounting direction, and we could bring some parallels or bridge this a little bit too, right? Like the money and the accounting and the rap to me is all just one thing. And maybe that's because in accounting we're accounting for the money, and rap a lot of times the rappers are rapping about money. I mean, they're rapping about the money that they have.
It's true.
They rap about their accountants too. Like my accountant handles that, right?
Yeah. Then between my accountant handles that, or got 20 bank accounts, accountants count me in. We could keep going for a while.
I know you can keep going for a while. So this has been a passion of yours for a long time.
It has. But let's bring it back to the accounting side. We're going to take a little bit of a different direction. I know the rap stuff is there. I know the social media stuff, all the cool things you do. But let's go back to the original story of Scott. You know, give me like a minute intro on Scott before everything else. Scott the accountant.
Before the rapper.
Yeah.
I was Scott before I was a rapper.
That's right.
Before I was OKR.
Mm-hmm.
So Scott was my grandfather was a CPA growing up. So I always start there, usually because that was my eye of success. He was successful. He had a CPA firm. My dad worked for him for a little while, and then split off and did his own thing in software, but it was accounting software, still in the profession and in the business. And I wanted to be an entertainer when I was a kid. That's what I wanted to do. naturally, I also wanted to be an accountant because I wanted to make money. And I knew that was, or at least I got that instilled in my head that you got to make money. You can't just go out there and try to be a creative, because if you fail, you're not going to have any foundation. Well, I went through early stages of trying to make it as a creative, and then I got arrested. I got curbed to the side a little bit. Yeah, I don't know how much we want to talk about that, but it's part of the lore. That's when I was trying to be a director, screenwriter, actor, rapper, all of the things then, but I was also doing a lot of drugs and other things on the side. So kind of curtailed that ambition or that dream of mine. And then I safely fell back into accounting. And then it was just smooth sailing from there. Like I kind of pushed and repressed that dream and then just built this other dream. And that was still a dream of mine. I still wanted to be a successful, I didn't know what it was. I was going to be a CPA, and I think that was the track that I was on. And then obviously I got off track, found that fork in the road, took the other side of the fork. Yeah. Then when I went back into accounting, that was the only road. And it was a road paved, let's say it was paved in blood, sweat, and tears. And then it turned into a road paved in gold, Yeah. That's the road that I've been walking along lately. And we could, fast forward to the present now, I can safely do both of those things. And those roads are woven together. But back then, it was all or none, either one.
Yeah.
So I took the path of accountant. So to kind of stop that short, to kind of like put a pause on that story, I did end up working for another accounting firm. I worked at a couple larger CPA firms, regional CPA firms. I think I quit one, got fired from another, and then started working for a really small local one, firm called Paget Business Services. This guy is running small franchise locally, was offering me the opportunity to work at it for 5 years and then take it over from him. And that's what I did. It was a very small local shop. He was doing maybe about 90,000, 100,000 gross revenue a year when I started there, and he offered me the opportunity to build it. And in those 5 years that I worked for him, I grew it to be about 500,000. Maybe it was about 550 when I bought it from him. And so I bought it from him in 2015, and it was at about 550. And since then, I've grown it to about 1.4, 1.5 million, in that range.
Damn.
In those 10 years.
Respect.
And I'm out of the business now. So
yeah, respect, man. Now, when the first thing that came to my mind when you said that was, holy shit, this dude took someone on at 90 to 100 grand gross revenue.
He was paying me 40 too.
Wow. The respect I have for people that can do that, to have that vision at 90 to 100, which after, payroll taxes and all this shit, and the other expenses, was he netting on that like 40, maybe?
Yeah.
But that's crazy. So you grow this business. You're obviously learning.
Well, that was the point of it. Was I was going to be doing marketing and growth as well. It wasn't just an accounting job that I took on, and sent me down to Athens, Georgia, which was the headquarters of the franchise of Paget Business Services, and I was doing some marketing training then. And this was 2010-ish. I know it was around when Eminem's Recovery came out, because I was listening to Recovery on the drive down, like on a loop.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we can tell this whole story through when Eminem eras too, if we want to. So that was around Recovery, and I went down there, and I remember the training, and it was marketing training, and the way they were training it was going door to door to the businesses in your local area. Knocking on the doors, hitting the pavement, asking if they like their accountant. You guys like your accountant? That's the thing that we would open up with. We would open the door. Do you like your accountant? And
that's
like stuff like that. It was, and I did that to the shopping centers around here, and I think we got some clients that we still have today from that. But it was a lot of work. It was a lot of effort. I would spend a whole day out of the week sometimes, and I was hungry. I was motivated, and I was a hustler. So that's what I did until I realized that you could be doing that online instead of going door to door. So one of those marketing sessions, I asked, like, what about a website? What if you invested in a website and built that up and then had people come to your door?
Yeah.
And they were like, nobody goes online to search for accountants. That was what I got. So I kind of went my own, and because my parents were in software and my mom's been doing marketing for their software business, it was naturally like she was helping me do this. So I was still pretty young. I had a young daughter and, growing a family, and that worked out pretty well once we set up the website, and we grew pretty fast. Wow. So that was part of the initial thing. We got it set up on Google. We got our postcard from Google to geolocate our office, and that was a really big step. And we started getting Google reviews, and that was some of the early stages of our growth.
Now, was that before you took over or after? Because sometimes
it was still while I was working there as an employee. Most of the building stuff of the initial foundation of it was while I was still, learning the ropes too.
Yeah, because I know sometimes when you take over a firm, or you're in the process of, or you're growing it, and the main guy is still around, it's very difficult to affect change.
Yes.
Because they're pushing back on everything. But it seemed like this dude was clearly
that was what I had that was different. This guy was foot out the door. Okay, so he had a beach house. He did not want to spend any time at the office. He was me before I was me, right? He was absent, and he let me change and do anything I wanted, and he didn't really say no. So this was an opportunity for me that I didn't realize how much of a benefit it was to have somebody that was absent, because I was so ambitious and I took a lot of things on myself and I didn't need any help.
Yeah.
It worked out. Now, if I had been reliant on somebody for oversight, and things would have been different. And I did have him for oversight, the things I needed, but most of it was like hands off. And then I was meeting with clients. I would step in and I would take care of the client's problem. The client that wanted to talk to Jerry, they ended up talking to me, and I solved their problem. Then they wanted to talk to me. So it was just a build from there.
At what point did you realize that you needed someone else because you were just doing, or was there already a third person?
I hired the next person. I said we need help. So that's a good question. And the first couple of hires we had were interns, because that's what he was used to doing. He hired interns, kids that were like in college, just learning, because that's fairly inexpensive. But the problem was they didn't last that long, because then they went off to do their thing, or go move on to a bigger job, Big Four, or whatever it was, and we were just sort of like a stepping stone. And then I had a client of mine was a friend from high school, and he was employing friends from high school as well. And one of the guys that he had as an employee took an interest in what we were doing at my firm and what I was doing in the business I was growing. And he said he wanted to do taxes one year. So I said, I could make that happen. Yeah. Sure. That is now my operations manager. Wow. And that's the guy who's running my firm now. And that's the guy I could thank. So that's Christopher. Topher is what they called him in high school. I called him Chris, just to make it different business, right? Like I have Scott and Scotty now. It was different. He had like Topher with all the friends. He's friends with my brother. He grew up with my brother. Yeah. And he was Chris at the office. And Christopher on most of the written language, right? Christopher on there. So that was like, that's the person that I have running it now. But that was sort of another just like situation where we were, and so we did end up hiring him full time after that tax season, because he wanted to work more, and he enjoyed this working with small businesses. It really intrigued him. And so, that was the first real hire. And then we hired more and more people from there. By the time I purchased the business from him, I think in his tiny little nook of an office, there was like 2 offices and a storage room and an open area. We fit 6 people in there, I think, at up until I think the point that I moved out. I think we squeezed in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in there. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty wild.
Crazy.
So you have 7 people, you're doing 500 grand or so at that time in revenue. Was the purchase price agreed upon beforehand, or was it like?
Yeah. So that's where the franchise came in a little bit. That was a little helpful. They sort of acted as like consultants in the agreement, but obviously they didn't take. It wasn't like a broker. They didn't take a cut because they kept me in the franchise system. So they got to. Their benefit was me just staying within the system, and they took on that like back and forth of okay. He thinks it's worth this much, and I think it's worth this much, and I had a lot of control over the books too, so I knew what the value was, and I built the business up until that point. So it was, and he was doing a profit share with me too. So that's how I was highly compensated for all the growth as well. That was something that kept me motivated. Was I was growing it, but I was also getting paid for the growth too.
Yeah.
So it kept my head in the game for sure, and I was motivated. But yeah, how did we come up with the price? Honestly, I think it was like I don't have all the details, but they were consulting with that, and we used a combination of recurring revenue and one-off. We split off what the recurring was, and we split off what all the one-off was, and the one time, and we got a good valuation from that. That's how it ended up being 550.
550 was the purchase price.
Yeah, I think that the revenues were at like 6, but I purchased it for 550. I forgot exactly the details of why, but there was like one big one-off thing that I got to sparse off, and that's why I got it for a little bit less. So I was like picking needles, and I was trying to get the best price I could.
Yeah, makes sense. You did like a seller financing basically for
seller financing. So I paid it off within 3 years, I think, or 2.5 years. I paid it off early because I don't like debt. So
I feel you.
Yeah, but the interest rate wasn't that high or anything.
Yeah. I asked this too because, and this is obviously significantly different in your scenario just because you've kind of grown up with that firm and built it up. But I always talk about this stuff because when people buy firms from others, retirees, people that are looking to get out of the game, one of the biggest challenges is attrition. One of the biggest challenges is clients who are like, oh, but I want Bob. Bob used to, do.
Yeah, we
smokes.
had that. We had that a little bit. Well, I want Jerry is what they would say.
Yeah.
But it was only the really cheap ones. It was only the ones that knew they were going to get something special because he had an affliction for them and would give them a special price or whatever it was. And so, yeah, we dealt with that. But it's the same thing happened when I was sort of phasing myself out too. People would want to talk to me, but it was only the ones that wanted to leapfrog over somebody and get to me because I could pull the strings,
right,
or do something,
Yeah. So as you're growing, you take over this business 2015, you officially buy it out. You step into the shoes. Is there anything you're like? Was it like finally? I mean, it seems like you were kind of running it your own way anyway, but like, what was that feeling like of being the one officially?
Oh, I was the one before that. You couldn't tell me nothing. Before Jerry was gone, I was the one. So and that was just my mindset though. And that was the mindset I took going into the business too. So I guess when I say the one, it's like, rappers anointing themselves as the one. Like I was the one. I was running the business and nobody could tell me nothing. I was doing everything the way I would learn a lot of things the hard way through mistakes and through things I was doing. But I always found the right way or the way for each thing that we did. So nobody could tell me nothing. And so, that was the hardest thing to unlearn though, is becoming the one and then removing yourself as the one and becoming none, essentially. Like that's what I had to do. I had to go from the one to none. So from 1 to 0.
I really want to dive into that process. But before that, the one lyric that came to my mind as you were saying, there was no mistakes in life. It's only lessons.
Yeah.
Big Sean.
Big Sean.
Shout out to he's a goat. But
He's a goat.
anyway,
Yeah.
we digress. Yeah. So, to go from, like we say, the one to the one running the show, the main honcho, the person calling the shots, to fully stepping out must take a pretty big adjustment. How long did it take? And what were some of the challenges you experienced in that time frame?
You got me thinking about rap now, so that's the question again. Sorry. I'm just thinking about my top 3 and thinking maybe Kendrick should have been higher than Cole. So. Sorry.
You really went back, huh? It's all right. Yeah. I swapped it out on you. But no, my question was, so you go from being the one, the head honcho, the boss, the calling the shots, can't tell me nothing, to phasing yourself out. 2 questions. How long did it take? And what were the challenges in those moments that you can recall?
Great question. Okay. So the biggest, the length of time was, so let's anchor all of this with some hard numbers, right?
Yeah.
We ended 2015 at about 700,000. 2016, we were at about 960,000. 2017 was when we hit $1 million, or maybe that ended at about 1.3 million, 2.85 in 2017. That was one of the bigger jumps.
Wow.
Year over year. And then we got stuck there for a very long time. So we were at 1.2 million up until 2021.
Wow.
2017 to 2021. That was the time period where the growth obviously stopped, but then it started internally. So I started growing and our firm started changing a lot, but the top line never changed. So a lot of things happened from 2017 onward. We had it was experiencing a lot of attrition and a lot of things that we wanted to change, but that was when I started EOS as well. So I think we started EOS around 2016, 2017, around that time, and we started changing our internal structure, and that's where I started seeing myself. So that was when I saw I heard of a visionary and what that actually was, and that's basically what described me. And I said, how do I just sit in that visionary seat? So we saw this accountability chart, EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system. I just said EOS, but didn't really give context. So we had found that, and we started doing that. And that I would say from there, it took me like 5 years of doing EOS to get fully out of everything and to have the firm running without me. But it was a lot of intention. And it wasn't just growth for the sake of growth, because I chose through another fork in the road, right? Like I could have kept trying to grow, but I found every time we tried to grow and hire more people, we would lose something, or a person would leave, or it was just, it was that, it felt like a Rubik's Cube. You felt like you got one side going and then everything else is all screwed up. And then you got to go turn around and fix all this. We had moved into a newer office. We moved into a bigger building, and we were getting a lot of new clients, but also you're losing stuff on the back end too, because you're changing things. Yeah. So it was a lot of that until COVID. COVID was the catalyst, the outside catalyst that helped me actually mindset shift and get myself out of the way. So that's the biggest change was COVID. Beginning of COVID, being physically separated from everybody working from home, and knowing that our systems worked. We had people working somewhat remotely before that, but it was maybe like a day I let them, 2 days out of the week, I would let them work from home. It wasn't like they just were working from home. That's what started COVID. And they really liked that. They appreciated that. And then eventually it led to, okay, let's just sell the office. Chris actually bought the office, and I was paying him rent. Since he doesn't have equity in the firm, that was his way of, he'd been with me a while, and it was like a way of rewarding him too. But he said he wanted to move out of the office too. He made a quick buck on that too. So for the 4 or 5 years we were there, he made about $200,000 just on the real estate deal.
Nice.
Bought it and sold it in that time. And during COVID, real estate value went up here a lot. So everything, he took advantage of that and made some money. And I was out of the lease, and we're fully remote.
Yeah.
And that was around the time that I was able to fully separate myself. That was around the time I started my podcast and then eventually started rapping.
Wow. Fascinating journey. Where I went with this in my mind, as you were telling me that you got stuck at the 1.2-ish, 1.3, two things again came to my mind. One was I had Nicole on the show. Nick's on the show a couple months ago, actually. Mm-hmm. And she told me literally the same number, 1.2, 1.3, and she felt stuck.
Yeah.
At this number, that's where she's at right now.
It's a common place and phase. So it's called hitting the ceiling. There's a lot of different things like that it's called, but these are the plateaus that people tend to reach. And it wasn't until I got out of the way that I was able to get past that too. But getting out of the way means a lot of different things for everybody, right? Yeah. So for me, it just meant, my ego and not needing to fix things and learning how to say no to things and just changing the full mindset shift of getting out of the way physically, mentally. Once I got out of the team's way, they were able to thrive, and they started growing and taking on ownership of all the things that happened to me when Jerry got out of the way started happening to them.
Yeah, it's fascinating. The other thing that jumped into my mind was for that time period from 2017-ish to like 2021, I think you said, give or take, where you were stuck at that 1.2, 1.3, but shifting things around internally. What was your bottom line like to yourself? Like, were you...
Oh, great question. So let's talk about how much I was making then. So I was still taking a salary back then. So let's say 2017, I was working like crazy, 80 hours a week.
Damn.
It was insane. I lived at the office. My kids didn't see me much. And I was making about, so maybe 380.
Damn. All W-2, or that's like the combination?
I only took like 90 as a W-2.
Got it. Okay, so a combination.
Yeah, and the rest was operating. That was that year. And then as I started to hire, we hired a lot more. Payroll went up. 2018, I made less. 2018 was like, me trying to then hire out the stuff that I was doing too. And we started having some more top level people that weren't doing as much client work. I made about 100, 200 maybe. Let's see, I had 70 as the salary and then 120. Wow. So I made less. It went down. 2019, a little bit better, but still sort of a down year. I think I cleared 2-something that year. 2020, I had a loss.
Whoa.
So on the books, with amortization and some other things. Sure. But I still took a salary then.
Wow.
2021 was huge because of other things that happened too. And then 2022 was probably one of the biggest years. So,
wow.
So let's just say 2020, that year of the loss, was also the year that I fully exited, and we had hired 2 more people. There's a story associated with the numbers, obviously, and we can go into those details. But this is still me getting my bearings on trying to get out of the work and out of that. So when we hired 2 more operational people, eventually we realized, obviously, we were at a loss. We weren't growing because we couldn't handle the inflow of clients. So I went full speed into sales. We're taking on a lot of work. And then we couldn't handle the onboarding because we just hired 2 new people, and we couldn't give them full decks of work until everybody was properly onboarded. And So it was like a bottleneck that we reached. And it was just a lot of growing pains again there, to where you saw our top line didn't keep going up. But now I'm like, okay, I'm investing in this. We ended up eventually let 2 people go and really reconfigure things internally to be a little bit more stable, I guess. And then ERC starts happening, and other forms of new revenue start coming in, and then we start growing again. So that was the first year that we went 1.5 million. We hit 2021 was 1.4, 2022 was 1.5 million. So now we're past that 1.2 million mark. We're growing. I have people that are doing all the work. I'm not doing it. And then I made almost 500,000 cleared.
Damn.
All said in that 2021. Over 300 in 2022. And by this point, I'm not doing any work anymore.
Wow.
So at my best year, working 80 hours a week, clearing maybe close to 300, give or take.
Yeah.
And then to go from not doing anything, it was a huge mindset shift, but also it was really weird feeling feeling guilty. I felt very I did an episode on Blake's earmark, and I went into a lot more detail about this. And so at this stage, I was feeling guilty about having them do all this work and that I was getting paid for it. I shouldn't have felt like that, because it was, like I said, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of work that went into being able to do that. But yeah, that was the reality of it.
Wow. Yeah. This is why I wanted to go into this, because I think that mentality, that to ride that storm of going from, yes, you're working a ton, but seeing the, 380 or whatever you said, 350, 380 is a lot of money, right? But you're working for it, of course, but you're
right. I was working for that. I was staying up all night getting stuff done, extra stuff that I took on that staff couldn't handle. So I was taking it on myself. It was that kind of stuff. Very profitable, but was it worth, they said, what they say? Yeah. Was it worth all the trauma that it was inflicted on myself then that I'm paying for now? Yeah. So.
And that's the tough thing, but to see that over the years, then as it's going down and into the loss category, the mentality, the mental strength you have to be not want to revert back, jump back in.
Yeah. Well, it helps that we got some PPP money. So that's what I used to invest in hiring the new people, because I wanted to reinvest back into the business. So that was the mental thing that I was able to get over. I was playing with house money, it felt like, right? So I was paying, even though we had a loss. Remember, what funded that loss was money that I didn't work hard for. I felt like that. So it was a situational type thing too. But that was what helped us get over the hump and learn a lot. These were the mistakes that had to be made too. I don't know if any of it was a mistake. It was just reshuffling.
Yeah. It's interesting. It really is, because, again, to me, it's so, foreign almost, that the feeling of, wanting to, to bypass that. I can't even picture myself, honestly speaking, and being truthfully honest, I can't even picture myself taking that, even with the PPP money in the picture. Sure. If I think about myself in your shoes back then, as an accountant, I guess, and I feel like this is what makes you different, and many folks like you. It's if I was to see a loss and I was to feel, I would if I was to take that risk to say, okay, that's it, I'm scaling myself out of here. Yeah. And I'll be like, all right, I'm all in on scaling myself out of here. Year 1, okay. Year 2, all right. Year 3, loss, I'm out. And
almost happened. Okay, so I'm with you there. There was some very tumultuous moments, but that was the moment that I learned I could trust my team too, because they knew what was happening. It wasn't like I was just doing this behind their backs. This was all intentional. And they took it upon themselves to let those 2 people go too. Wow. And so these were this was one of them was the front office, administrative person. Like letting two people go is a very hard thing to do as a business owner.
Yeah.
And if I had to do it myself, like you said, I'm out like that. And it wasn't that I was going to like take it upon myself. I'm going to do this because I need to line my pockets again. I need to make more money. It's like
Right.
this business is not sustainable. We have way too much overhead. And the only thing I could cut at this point is now salaries.
Yeah.
And we took somebody that we probably should have let go a longer time ago. And so we took that as an opportunity to then but it changed morale. After letting those two people go, it changed morale from the management team and also the team that was still there because they really valued their jobs after that. And then all of a sudden everybody took everything a lot more like they took a lot more ownership and accountability. They had a lot more accountability. Everybody that was still with us, because we would tolerate stuff from the person that we let go before because he was just another body in the seat, just doing the work. And then it was my management team that took it upon themselves to let him go. And one of the guys on the team took it so hard, like he was throwing up the night before that he had to do it. He was that stressed.
Man.
And I realized that I could trust them. It wasn't like they trusted me, and I trusted them to do this. And that was like one of the epiphany moments where it's like, okay, I can trust them to handle everything after this. And that's the mindset that you have to get over too, because before it was the clients were trusting me to take care of all this stuff. And now it's like my team's trusting me to take care of them. So I wasn't taking care of clients anymore. I was taking care of them too.
Yeah. I feel that. It's putting myself in your shoes, then still, like, I can see what you're saying. Like, it feels that at that point, once they do that, so to speak, for you or for the company, meaning that they have the company's best intentions and best thoughts in their mind, and you're all aligned, and that's where the epiphany moment comes, and you say, okay, like, this is working, and it's going to be okay. But man, what a ride.
So things have stabled out. Now we have, we've 5 people in the Philippines now.
Nice.
And 6, including me, but I wouldn't include me now. We have 5 here in the U.S.
Okay.
And things have been very stable. Revenues at like 1.4 again, just a little bit of shifting around there. And I don't take salary anymore because I'm not involved, right? I don't have. I'm not an office. I mean, I'm not a active employee. So, but I've been clearing in the 200 range the past couple of years. Paying my team pretty good now. They're running the show, and things have been very stable. It doesn't require me for anything this tax season. The only thing I had to do was my own return because I kind of wanted to take care of that. Yeah. And I was complaining about that. I know I was doing it on your birthday, and I shot you a happy birthday. And I said, I'm doing a tax return today. Yeah. And it wasn't pleasant. But
and I said, taxes suck.
Yep.
Blank.
Yep.
Oh.
I remember how many returns I used to do, and this was the only return I did this year, and it was different. It felt different.
With all that, are you happy? Like, do you feel like this is what you envisioned?
So, great question. It was exactly what I envisioned. And I wouldn't say that I resented it at one point, but I went out and did something completely different. Then I went out and did Accounting High and did the podcast. And then I became OKR, the rapper. And then I started performing. And then we did this Accounting High tournament, like the ABC tournament. We didn't do it this year, but we did it past couple of years. And I realized I was spending more time, just as much time doing all of those things as I was at my firm. So was I happy at my firm while I was working? I was happy when we had the wins. And I was very stressed when there wasn't wins and when things were going wrong. And the firm days when I was working. Yeah. And working until 3 a.m, I wouldn't say you're happy, but sometimes there's a dopamine rush when you look at the numbers and you're like, damn, we're growing. Oh, look at what I accomplished. Yeah. So there's senses of happiness, but I wouldn't say it's pure joy. And then as I was doing all the other stuff, the Accounting High, Like the podcast, that was thrilling. It was exciting. And I'm meeting all these new people, traveling, going to all these conferences. I was traveling nonstop.
Yeah.
I went to over 25 conferences, I think, one year.
Wow.
I have performed at almost 20 at this point now. 20 different performances. I gotta count. I gotta make a tour shirt of all the places I've performed. And would I say I was happy then? Yes, I was very happy. I was thrilled. It was thrilling to do all that. But then I missed my family so I was gone a lot and I was traveling and I missed them. So then I was like, so I was happy. I mean, my firm's running. I was happy about that. I'm doing all the things that I wanted to do when I was in school before I got arrested.
Yep.
I should be happy for that. But then I missed my family. So now I've sort of pivoted. I haven't recorded my podcast in like 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
Slowed down on anything else, all that extra stuff. I have one performance slated this year, but nothing too crazy. And you were just asking me if I'm going to any of these conferences, and I've kind of passed on most of the things that I used to go to because now I'm just spending time with the family at home, and I'm trying to find joy and fulfillment in that because my kids are growing. My oldest is about to go to college. She is graduating high school. So I like to say accounting high is having our graduation too.
Yeah.
And I've been making music videos and music with my kids now too. So
That's
it's
amazing.
something different, and it's not. I'm scratching a different itch than all of those other things. So yeah, I'm happy to answer your question. Yeah.
I think the real happiness comes from the fact that you're capable and able with no hit too much to make those pivots. You know, as I listen to you and as I think about my own journey and some other folks that I've spoken to, it's like the ability to say, I'm going to try to be happy doing touring, OKR, going to these conferences. The coolest thing I saw you do was the freaking Italy thing. I was super jealous.
Dope.
I was like, that's so dope, man. And you got to go there with Expensify, I think, if I remember right. And to go do that, I was like, that is dope. You know, and then, you know, that is probably a big high, right, moment. And then
Such a high. I got to take my wife. We had a trip to Italy. It was
Incredible.
it's all amazing. It still is.
Yeah.
Super cool. And so yeah, that stuff is thrilling, but those highs are met with extreme lows too. Yeah. So I think the highest point was performing at ZeroCon. Main stage, I did the Zero rap, and it was epic. Like the performance, the reaction from the audience and the reaction from the people at Zero, it was just like the toppest point of my life. I was the top of the world. And then there's like months of being at home, and it was like I had reached something and did something, but then it's just like the normal everyday stuff at home felt a lot duller because of those heights, because of those things that I had been doing. Like after going to Italy, and then you're just like trying to find joy in the everyday. So it took a little while to start leveling all that out, and you know, realizing that I don't necessarily need those super high heights too. Because it's met with those lows, or try to like, I don't know. I'm still in that process right now. I am enjoying my everyday now. You know, I meditate every day. I walk. I'm like a monk. I feel like a monk right now. I feel like I'm in my monk mode. You know, trying to recoup. So I've been dealing with some health issues lately too. So I've been recovering. Been seeing some doctors, and been taking things a little easy. Good. Because all of that work, your body keeps the score. There's a book that I'm reading too, The Body Keeps the Score. And all that stuff that I put myself through to grow this firm and to get here, and then all the stress I put myself through for the traveling and the performing and all that, it led to some burnout, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of where I'm at.
Yeah. What a journey. It really, when you were talking about the highs and the lows, I can relate.
I bet you can, yeah.
I can relate, but in a different way. In the way of social media and that impact. I don't know. I'm trying to remember because I don't think you were ever like super like I don't think you were ever like posting every single day. It's at least
No,
not to
I
my
couldn't do that. I tried to at one point, but
yeah.
it was too much of a dopamine release and too many highs and lows with that.
Yeah.
Too frequent too, too close
Yeah.
together.
And I think what you just said is really nailing it. And on my end of things, the highs and lows of social media is really where I can relate to that. You make a post or something, or and everything comes from the heart, right? Like everything is
Sure.
there's
Authenticity. You're the king of authenticity.
I'm trying, man.
You're super authentic out there. That's why I cheer you on. I love all the stuff you're
appreciate
doing.
that. Well, when you do that, and then you're authentic, and then you get the flowers, you get the claps, you get the
Yep.
Hey, this brand reaches out to you, that brand reaches out to you, that brand reaches out. You're like, whoa. And the wildest moment to me was 2 speaking engagements last year, and I was like, people want me to talk on stage.
Yeah.
They want to fly me out to San Diego or to Maryland, and like this is nuts. And then to come, like you said, just the same concept, but it's more daily on the home front, where you're sitting there and you're seeking that high again.
Yep.
Man, social media is a drug, dude.
It is, isn't it? It definitely is.
It's
I've had my experiences with real drugs, and social media is very similar.
Yeah, man. The dopa, it's no joke, man. And again, and then you almost like, if you don't get another speaking engagement, or if you don't do this, or if you don't reach 500 likes or some nonsense,
Yeah.
it's like, what am I doing?
You got to go easy on yourself too.
Yeah.
You got to, and that was something I've learned through this journey is you got to be easier on yourself and put less pressure. See, the pressure builds diamonds too, right? And putting all that pressure and having something to prove is what creates all this beauty. Like, I wouldn't have been able to do all those raps if I didn't have that back of my mind thing, somebody telling me that I couldn't do it, right?
Yep.
And the same thing with the firm, same thing with all the growth and all that, thinking that I wanted to reach a certain level that my grandfather reached, or something of a status or a state of, like, my whole, I think, imprint early on was getting the house at the country club, being able to play golf, growing the firm. I got all that stuff before I started doing the podcast. That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
All my free time was dedicated to golf or running the practice. And I wasn't spending that much time with my kids. And so I got out of the firm. I stopped playing golf, but then I started doing other things that still wasn't spending that much time with my kids. And that's a limited time period, right? We have a very limited window with our children before they're off doing their own things. And I'm seeing that like fast motion, because I got 2 really young kids too, but then my daughter that's going to college. So like,
Yeah. Man, I'm reading this book right now, hitting right on that, what you just said.
What's the book?
The 5 Types of Wealth.
Okay.
By Sahil Bloom.
Okay.
And in there, more or less in the beginning, he talks about that first 10 years. You have 10 years, basically, in your kids' lives where you are everything to them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can go a little bit further, 12, 13, but really, let's even call it 14 years. And after that, they seek and they you, just like we were as teenagers, like our friends are more important all of a sudden, the parents, we respect them, but at the same time you're battling with them, and more so, and you're starting to find enjoyment or whatever it is in other places, and our parents, and us as parents become less important in their lives. And to miss that, man, it's definitely something. Like when he was saying that, I was like, damn, like you're just getting teary-eyed reading this book.
Yeah.
But
because you got 2 young ones, that's why you can relate to it.
I got 2 young ones. I got
and you got a lot of time that you can spend with them, and you have been. Like that's
Yeah.
part of the mission here. You're not working those 80 hours,
No.
so you have that extra time that you can be there and be present with them.
Yeah.
And I don't think I had that perspective because my whole motivation was money. early on. And all those days, what I was worshiping. That was the altar that I was at. I was at the altar of the almighty dollar.
Yeah.
And it was to grow the firm, grow, make more money. But then once I hit that point where it was like making enough, and that was enough, right? I was working too much for what I was making. I probably should have been making more because the amount that I'm working. I feel like I'm making enough now for the amount that I'm working. Like I feel like that's in balance right now, at least.
Yeah.
One thing that I've been able to balance. Balance isn't easy though for some people. It might not be for you, so you got to find other ways to occupy your time, and you're doing that. You're working out, going to, spending your time on LinkedIn. I mean, that's fulfillment in some ways too, right?
It is. And on the flip side, I find myself some days, you're just constantly like I said, drugs, man. Checking that phone, looking at it, seeking that dopamine like a rat.
Now, but you have accomplished something. Like I remember on our episode for our listeners that are listening to us here, you can listen to Yuri on my show, Accounting High. He's got a good episode and detailed his story too. So I think you were at the stage there, and you might still be at that same stage of deciding, do you want to grow and scale your firm or continue to live this life that you were never able to have when you were working at these other firms? You never had that freedom and fun.
Yeah.
You will cut your freedom in half or cut it at its ankles, and you won't have it once you try to start growing your firm again. Because I didn't have it. And I think that it's necessary for anybody to grow something that could afford you the ability to step away from it. You have to start doing some of the hard things. And it would require a lot of work to change the way you have your firm now to being able to have some employees running it for you. And it would take some time. I would say conservatively 5 years is what I would think for most people that have been doing this a while, because it takes so much time to change your mind. That's the hardest thing that you have to change. All of this other stuff, physically, it looks easy. And there's probably a lot of people that could just do it just like that, maybe in a year or two. But I think for a lot of us, 5 years is conservatively like the time it would take to grow it big enough that you could actually step away from it too.
Yeah.
And are you willing to do that while your kids are so young?
And honestly speaking, for the record, like that episode that we did on when I came through to your podcast, man, out of all the other podcasts I've been a guest on, that one was top. I'm just gonna go ahead and say probably number one.
Oh, dope.
The reason for that is it was just it was almost like a therapy session to some extent for me. And in many ways, it also caused me to do some retrospective thinking and prospective thinking as to where I want to be. And truth be told, I haven't adjusted anything. I gave it some thought, and I'm content where I'm at.
Good.
I think of it as
there's beauty in that too.
Yeah.
Being content and being happy with where you're at. There's a lot of beauty in that.
Yeah. I think about it a lot in firm ownership, business in general. I think especially with us as a lever. I always have this vision in my mind and this like picture when I think about what I could do, right? I'm at a lever right now. I have a lever right here, almost like a throttle to an airplane. I'm holding it here midway, I'm showing, midway on the throttle, because it's still difficult to do the social media, to do the firm stuff, to wear 8,000 hats on my head, and
you only wear the Fun CPA hat.
Right now I'm only wearing the Fun CPA,
right.
But I'm about to wear a helmet shortly after this. But anyway, halfway through, and you got the throttle on there, and that's all those things. But you're making it, and you're okay. You're content. You're flying along. But then maybe you see something on social media. Maybe you think to yourself, is there more? Maybe you think to yourself, you want to get to this being fully out of the picture, visionary person, right? And then you take that throttle and you push it all the way to the afterburners. I love planes. Like you push it and you got the afterburners going and you're flying. But something's got to give, And I always think about that. It's really like this image that I have in my head. I'm like, I could take it. I could push that lever all the way down and go all in, am I going to be happy with the result 5 years down the line? That's what really, that from our episode, that's what really stuck with me. It's not push the lever and half a year from now you're a millionaire sitting up there in visionary land doing nothing.
No, it's never like that.
And so,
let me be living proof for that. It is not easy.
It's not easy. And then and if that was the case, then sure, push the lever, 6 months, reconfigure, figure it out. Are you happy? But it's not. Well, there's the other residual stuff that happens too. So it's all of the other things. Is the wear and tear on your engine. If you're putting it at full throttle, and if you haven't greased it up properly or taken enough rest, then that engine might be blown by the time you're done, right? You may be crash landing that plane if you're pushing the throttle, and then you crash land it. What are you going to do with all the money? Yeah. A really great analogy, really great point. Where's Scott/Scotty's point in life? Where's the journey going next?
It's a good slash point. That's like the intersection where they've both been able to coexist simultaneously. And that was hard because I pushed Scott aside when I started doing all the accounting high and OKR and all that. Scotty emerged. Scotty existed before, but he wasn't around during the firm days. That was Scott. That was, you can't tell me nothing, and you better not call me Scotty because I'll get pissed off if you do. Don't mess around with me. I don't joke around. That kind of stuff. But Scotty exists in pure fun. Scotty is the fun. I'm not a CPA, but Scotty's the fun one.
Yeah.
Loads of fun. Now I've seen that they can intersect and coexist to where it doesn't have to be a 1 or a 0. I fully out. I'm trying to find a place where I can still exist in my firm rather than be totally absent. Like, what is it that they could use most from me? Where can I be of most value? All of that I've learned in running the podcast and interviewing people and being out in all the conferences and all the rapping. What can I do to help the firm most? Leverage point right now where I won't resent it. I don't even have to do sales or anything anymore. So it's fully operational, but where can I come in and then maybe we can 10x something else. I don't know. It's like, I want to be of value to them. Let's just say that. And exist there, but also still be there for the family. Like these quadrants of things of, fulfillment. How can I hop around from each one of those? And I don't have an answer for that because I could overly dedicate myself to one thing and then everything else kind of suffers. So I've overly dedicated myself to making these music videos with my kids for the last, I would say better part of since November of last year. Nice. That's all I've been kind of dedicated to. Once we have those, I'm going to start a new channel. We'll see what happens once we start that channel. See if I come back to this accounting stuff or if I kind of dedicate myself fully all into that and see what happens there. And then am I trying to make money out of that stuff too?
Yeah.
So I fear that, it's always come to the instinct to try to make more money because that was where I operated at from an early child. I was a hustler. Like I said, I'm working very hard to make my money. And now I got to figure out ways to happily spend it too without, cringing every time I got to spend money.
Yeah. Who's the biggest supporter, ride or die of Scott and Scotty?
My wife, Juana. Yeah.
I love it.
Oh yeah, for sure. She's the one who's nursed me back to health after I've had all these gut problems and shit that I've been dealing with. Like, she's nursed me back to health and also back to my sanity. Like, after, doing all this other stuff, all this fun stuff, it's like, now, how do I live a normal, every day and, still potentially do all the other performing and stuff too, but just find balance in all of that.
Yeah. I asked that for a reason too, because it's so important to have, as you bounce around, the world we're living in and operating in. You obviously have more folks on the team. I don't got no folks on my team.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, it's a very lonely world sometimes.
It is, for sure.
As you climb, you know, they say, what do they say? It's lonely at the top. But, you know, as you climb, it could be lonely too, really. You know, as you're getting these accolades and you're feeling so good about it. I've experienced these accolades and these things that happen as I'm sitting here in my house that currently has nobody in it.
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
And I, you know, that was my reason behind asking that.
Yeah. That could
well,
be very lonely. That's why I know a lot of people that, you know, it's not for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And that's why there's very few people that have the ability to push through that loneliness and see some freedom on the other side too.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like throughout all of this, I have found supporters, but I've also, you know, got some hate along the way too. Mm-hmm. So it's like being able to deal with that. That's usually harder than you would imagine. Yeah. I'm sure have you dealt with any hate? People aren't really that bad on LinkedIn, are they?
They're not bad, but you know what's interesting, man? I guess it's inherent. I don't know, not to toot my own horn, but I have this ability to kind of sometimes like empathize and even see through social media, through online, like a comment would come in seemingly positive, but I see like, especially given that like it's obviously if it's somebody new that I've never seen before, I can still tell. But if it's somebody that like I've seen around, has interacted with me here and there, I could see that it has a little bit of a snide remark. Like that's where you get on LinkedIn more so on the hate side. But there's haters. There's definitely haters. I've gotten messages. I've gotten like when I release my financials, I've gotten hate is like it's fake. You know, I've gotten hate of you're not work. The hate that I got this past tax season, I was posting my hours off of this. So
that's envy a lot of time too. I know you're putting it in quotes, but if you're posting this stuff and you have all this freedom and you're posting that's what you're doing. People are like, I don't have that. That shouldn't be. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, that shouldn't be. And then it upsets them.
Yes, it's insecurity. It's insecurity hidden as hate. You know, and hidden as trying to poke holes in something that but you know what I find to be worse than hate, direct hate? Echo chambers. You know, the wow, amazing, so insightful, great, blah, 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 you know, like and that comes from both folks, you know, I mean, my friends that are closest to me. You know, Scott Galloway, I think, said, you know, the kitchen cabinet, as it's called, is the people you speak to often about some ideas. Your folks that are down for those things. Those are so important, you know, and that's where you got
kitchen cabinet people.
Yeah, kitchen cabinet people. Those are the people you got to anchor yourself to, in those ideas because, you know, like, listen, you put something out there and there's the echo chambers and that disconnect, most importantly seen when I would roll out an event, when I would roll out a networking event that I've worked on for a month or so, put together a fucking epic, you know, like saxophone players, cigar rollers, my DJ could come out there, all this stuff that you've never seen on a networking event before. I roll it out and I'm like, this is going to be crazy, man. I'm going to need to limit the amount of people that are going to be coming to this because it's going to blow up, you know? And then I roll it out, crickets.
That's hard.
15, 16,000 followers.
Yeah.
That nothing will tune you to reality.
Or humble you more.
Or humble you. More than that. More than really realizing that at the end of the day is vanity numbers. And you better be okay with that. And I am.
I fear the crickets.
Yeah.
That's what I'm totally afraid of. I all of this stuff, like the performing and all that, my biggest fear is being met with crickets.
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's a fear you have to overcome.
For you, it's even more real than anything I'm thinking of because, I mean, you're literally on stage in front of thousands of people hundreds of people having to put together this show and physically sing. I remember you were telling me before we were talking about it, was like choking up on, on stage, or, having to restart.
Once. Yeah. And I choked doing an Eminem one.
Yeah, I remember. I remember you told me that. And it's like, but then, yeah, like that crickets of like, are you going up there in front of a bunch of accountants that you don't know whether they're going to be party and into it?
It happened. Nobody stood up. It was Scaling New Heights. I was on the main stage. I prepared my rap, and this was the first time ever being on stage in front of a lot of people.
Oh, man.
Over 1,000 people there. And nobody stood up. It was,
damn.
Oh man, it was a good rap too, but it wasn't. I didn't know how to engage the crowd, and it was also just awkward for everybody. They weren't expecting any of that. They had never seen this before.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I start coming out rapping about Scaling New Heights. I did a parody of Kanye's "Touch the Sky," and it was, man. But once I got everybody's name in there, and the verse that I did that gave shout outs to all the speakers. That's when I started hearing some crowd noise and people getting into it. But I learned throughout the way. And then, a couple years later, I go on stage and I had everybody standing up and cheering and stuff. And it's because I learned every step along those ways. But that was so hard to see that. And then I left that stage thinking I failed. I thought it was the biggest failure that night at Scaling New Heights. But then the night of that same night was like the opening ceremony party. Yeah. And I had people coming up to me telling me how much they enjoyed it. And that impact, those individual conversations was like, oh, wow, that's an entirely different feeling than being on stage and thinking everybody was supposed to stand up and then feeling sorry for myself. And all of a sudden I felt better about the whole situation.
Yeah.
And I saw it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And it is hard to be up there expecting people to stand up or wanting them to, but then them not doing it. I never asked anybody to stand up.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I learned that you got to ask everybody first. Then they will stand up in a situation like that. But otherwise, people were into it. So it was like, it was a humbling experience.
Yeah.
But that was the first one. Yeah.
The equivalent of that to me is like, you like, let's just say you do a post or something, and again, no reactions, your engagement is low for a little while, but then I would get these messages, man, in my DMs, literally like over the last couple of weeks, like people like, man, like they just send me a connection request and send me a name saying, hey, I don't know you, I just added you, but I just want you to know.
They're not trying to sell you something either.
No, they're not trying to sell me.
The rare one that isn't trying to sell you something,
Yeah.
and I still get those sometimes too. And it's a really good feeling to know that you did something that impacted somebody else or inspired them to do something.
Like, I started my firm because of you.
That is dope.
And I
bet you're getting a lot of that.
I am. Yeah. Probably in the last couple months, at least 10. And I say to myself, I literally write back to every single person that would write me that. And I basically say, thank you. And this is the reason why I do this stuff, even through the online version of Crickets. And that's what that's why I do what I do, because I want to inspire people.
You can create. Oh, sorry. Keep going.
No, go ahead. No, that was it.
You want to inspire people. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to inspire people. I want to see, like, I have no intent yet on what I'm doing necessarily. But again, when I see that, I'm like, cool. All right. Whatever I'm doing, this is dope. This is affecting people's lives.
So you can create your own version of anti-crickets. You can start compiling all those messages that you've gotten and create a little notebook or a little place that has it all collected in one place, that when you do meet a situation where there's crickets, you can quickly turn your gaze to a place that has all the praise.
Yeah.
And it fills you back up again, because you're going to meet the crickets again. That's inevitable, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It happens. And I honestly, to me at this point, it used to bother me more. Sometimes it does. I just go and do something else, like a bike ride, man, like I'm about to go on. And that's really how I get past it sometimes.
So what's your version of Scotty? Yuri already has a fun way of going apart. What's your rap name, or is that the Fun CPA?
It'll be the Fun CPA.
Okay, so you've got the Yuri and the Fun CPA. Yeah. The fun, that's like the Fonz.
Yeah.
The fun.
The fun. Yeah.
So how do you bring the fun into the work, right? And so I didn't talk about this, but this is something that could be of value. Yeah. I always did fun shit at the firm. Always did fun stuff or different things. People that got people to notice. or to, and it was with the team.
Yeah.
Always with the team first, because I had to get them engaged. So we would do silly things, fun things. We would have fun days. We watched Game of Thrones together. We did things that were like activities that created other bonds outside of it. And I always did comic booky, weird type stuff because that was my personality. And I remember the way we did our pictures was most impactful for potential clients too. So we did regular, straight up Scott type pictures, wearing a suit, all that. And then we did fun Scotty. I didn't have this name for it. It wasn't Scotty back then. It was just do your fun side. So the pictures that we did, everybody had something about them that was unique, fun. You know, my ops manager, he loves to hunt. So he had the hunting garb on, covered himself and all that. So you highlight over his picture. He's just wearing a regular polo for one of them. Your mouse goes over it, and all of a sudden he's in this hunting gear, right? We had people who like sports. So then hover over their picture, and all of a sudden a soccer ball is falling above their head. Or all different kinds of cool things. And so that was the fun aspect, and we tried to bridge that, and that's what clients resonated with. That's what people resonated with. They would go to our website and say, you guys seem like fun accountants, because every other website we went to, it was just them trying to present this professional. And I always butted against that. I was like, no, we're not that professional. We are. We're going to do your work. We're going to do a good job on it, but we're not. We don't take ourselves that seriously.
I love it. And I'm exactly that way. And I think it really does cut through the noise. It really does. When people see the content, people see all this stuff. That's on the business end. That's on the Yuri end, right?
Yeah.
The Fun CPA cuts through the noise and brings you to the Yuri, who is also fun.
Authenticity.
Yeah.
The real.
The real.
You got to get to the real.
You got to get to
that's
the real.
What the clients appreciate. I'm sure that's what the followers on social media appreciate, obviously, because they see if it's not real, and then it just gets fake engagement too. Yep. Right? You get real engagement, real people DMing you if you're doing real shit.
Yep. And
you're being true to yourself throughout all of it. If you're doing some fake shit, obviously you can make money doing fake stuff all day. You know, ads, promotion, and all that other stuff. That take you a long way. But at the end of the day, you're not going to make any real connections or real. Yeah.
You know, to that point.
And I'm sure you get that with your clients too. You're authentic with your clients.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We party, we hang, we get.
You would get that with your team once you have a team at one point.
Yeah.
If you make that decision.
If I make that decision, yeah. You know, it's funny. It's like, to me, I almost at this point am anti sponsorship. Like anti, dude. Like
I'm anti-sponsor. I haven't done any sponsoring in a long time.
I had a conversation literally yesterday with a brand that I have a pretty big podcast coming up that I'm doing in person, kind of like a Joe Rogan style, multiple camera angles. And there's like a little bit of a backstory to it, because the guy I'm interviewing is a partner at a firm I once worked at. And he's like an emeritus partner. So he's out the door basically, but he's going to come in and we're going to talk about like 60 years of accounting and what has changed in person in the office where I once sat
Did you work with him?
Yeah, that's the one.
Is it Ed?
It is Ed.
Ed.
Yeah.
Oh, dope. Tell Ed I said what up.
Yeah, it is Ed. Yeah, we'll tell him. Yeah, so him and I are going to, and the funny story with Ed, we have a little bit of a background, is that
Ed Mendowitz for the listeners.
Yes, Ed Mendowitz. And he, so he's an emeritus partner. One day I come into the East Brunswick office. I was in the Red Bank office. So I come into the East Brunswick office just for the day to just meet some people and chat and bullshit, whatever. And I asked for an office, whatever. So they gave me an office and they said, oh, Ed Mendowitz, go hang out at his, he never comes in. I come in, I sit at his desk. And lo and behold, 10 minutes later, the dude comes in and he's like, that's my desk. Now
and
that
you met him
yeah. And he literally walks in and he's like, that's my desk. And it was a two partner office. So there's two desks there. I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry. And he's like, I'm just going to sit in this other one. Don't worry about it. And him and I just BS'd for probably 4 hours that day.
That's cool.
And if anybody, if this was before the Fun CPA, before I went out on my own, obviously.
It sounds like a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode.
It was wild. And so now, so now to bring all that back and to go sit down in that same office with a real podcast team with all the light, all the stuff. It's awesome. But my point here is to where I was going with that is obviously it costs a decent amount of money to produce, but that's whatever. That's beyond the point. But I was like, I feel like I would want to get a sponsorship for it. And I was talking to a brand that was pretty open. They was talking to me they said, consider the long-term impact to yourself of like a sponsorship in general, because it signals that you can be bought. And I was like, shit. I've never done, I'm not going to get sponsorships. I don't really do affiliate links. I don't care. I'm going to recommend the stuff that you want to see because I use it. I don't recommend anything because I get paid from it. I don't care about your $30 that you're going to give me per person. It's fine. Go keep it. If somebody really wants to go out of their way and say I did it, fine. But that to me is really my brand, my authenticity. And I think, and the point of the brand that I'm referring to, they were like, that's really think about that. Mm-hmm. Not to say it's bad, but they're like, just think about it because...
So you can find authenticity in it. The way I started was we only had ads from the products that we used. And I had somebody else doing the show too with me. But then it branched out quickly to anybody that was asking us to do ads. I was doing them as the podcast was growing. We made a little bit of money doing ads, but it wasn't like serious money like running a firm, right? So, and the return on it wasn't as big. So and I can give some numbers. I think the first year we had about 50,000 of sponsorships. The next year I did a little bit more, maybe close to 90 to 100. But then the next year it was just like too much effort. Yeah. Too much effort to try to deal with all that. And then also it just didn't feel authentic anymore. Like at the beginning, like when we're talking about products that we were using at a firm. Yes. And when I was doing that, I could speak on that. But then it also felt weird. Like, okay, I'm paying them, and then they're paying me to do this, and it's, I was going to work the angle of maybe I can get some products for free. But then it's just like blurring the lines between a lot of different things, and so it's the authenticity that I wanted to stick to. Yeah. And I hadn't had ads for a while, probably for a similar reason. Yeah, I was just lazy too. I didn't want to deal with it.
I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot, and really importantly, it's like whenever I take any kind of sponsorship money, like my primary thing on my mind, top of mind at all times, is that person that just gave me that money. Like I got to bring them value. Yeah. And now I'm like, am I bringing them value? Am I bringing them value? Pressure. Now I'm pressurizing myself for what? $50, $100.
Are you trying to get more listeners or more? More, and it's another growth cycle.
And then if the podcast episode doesn't do as well, oh shit, are they gonna find value? Did I do it? Nah, yeah. I just don't care. Guilty. Like some episodes I get almost 200 downloads, some episodes will get 40, and for now I don't care. Sure. But again, that's my thing. But man, this has been real. I'll let you leave it off with where can the people find you? Who should find you? And we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm not as easily findable anymore. And LinkedIn is always a place that is there. I just don't post a lot on there anymore, and I stopped producing the show for a little while. We're on a hiatus, maybe summer break, potentially might be graduation fully. So, Scotty Scarano on LinkedIn, still the moniker. I might change it back to Scott at some point. It was like, that's a weird thing, right? It is. What's my name on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I get it.
I'm just joking. That's where it's at. I hope you guys found some value in this. I hope this has been useful conversation.
I think so. And to you, I wish your next journey to find that piece, to find that good spot, mixing all the quadrants that you were referring to, and really finding your place. And
peace and presence and patience. Those are three things that I can say have found prominent place. I'm trying to use as many P words as I can, I guess.
So many P's.
Prominent place in my life right now. Peace instead of boredom and anxiety. It's peace, right? It's just a way of reframing things. Excitement instead of anxiety too. But peace presence, being present in everyday things and not,
Yep.
constantly thinking about something else or being pulled in another direction. And patience is always hard for me. So,
Peace.
yeah.
I love it. Peace,
Peace out.
patience, and peace out. This has been real, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Hey, man, dope.